So welcome everyone. This is an EduSpark broadcast, a live stream with the wonderful Misty Patterson. I'm in Singapore. I'm Andrew Mowat, one of the co-founders of EduSpark, and Misty is an author and an expert in a particular field of inquiry-based learning, and I'm going to let her describe the particular focus and niche and expertise that she brings to this session. Misty, super welcome. Across the waters, you're in the afternoon, I'm in the morning, you're in Vancouver. Welcome to the session.
Thank you so much, Andrew. And thank you for everything that went into setting this session up. And thank you to everyone who's joining us live. It's so exciting. Any live event is spontaneous and it's improvisational, which means we don't exactly know what's going to happen. And that is the nature of inquiry, isn't it, Andrew? You don't know. You set up this container, you hope it's going to be fulfilling and enriching and unsettling in some way, so that's where growth happens. And we're already in it. So I love that we're modeling what we're talking about. And that's all about Pop-Up Studio, is it's being in it, and it's setting up those containers and seeing what happens with our very best intentions. So I'm looking forward to inviting you into an interactive experience today with concepts, materials, and that's how we're gonna spend time, is just getting into it. So Andrew, if it's okay with you, I'm gonna try to share my screen. I know this worked before. Hopefully it will work again for everybody. Fingers crossed.
So while you're doing that, we do need some interactivity, and we will be posting a link where we'll, first in, best dressed, there'll be a few opportunities to come into the session live for Misty to work directly with you. So let's just add your live session to the stream. Your screen, and in a moment, when you're ready for me to post that link, we'll have that link go out, and we'll join maybe 2, 3, 4 people into the stream with us here. Does that sound okay, Misty?
That sounds awesome. And there is a little fun sheet. That's a little record keeping template that is, again, an invitation, not a requirement, to enjoy the session or to reflect on it afterwards. And Andrew, you have that. So I'm going to leave it to you to share that when the time is right and in
Perfect.
the right way.
Yep. So yeah. I'll let you get into it and make a start, and I'll make sure that fun sheet's ready to go.
Thank you so much. And this is a newish platform for me, StreamYard, and it's functioning really beautifully. But unlike Zoom, I can't see you, Andrew. As you know, I can only see my slides, which I needed to convert to PDF. So I'm being responsive, as I talk about in the book as well. Here we are in doing this. So I just might have to check in with you to make sure that you're seeing what I'm seeing, and that everything is moving the way that it is. So are you seeing a slide that says my approach, Andrew?
Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic.
It's all working well.
Great. Okay. So I always like to start with this slide. And that's because the way that I like to hold space is one of humility, of honesty, and hopefully helpfulness. I won't know that until you let me know if the content and the approach is working for you. What I also find very important, and this is reflective of, I hope, many Canadians, is really honoring where we are in place and time, and our relationship with those who have created this beautiful space that we call home since time out of mind. And those are our Indigenous peoples. So for me, I'm working and living and playing in North Vancouver. That is the traditional and unceded territories of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. And it's important that we acknowledge these lands they're being loaned to us in a way that we are inhabitants of a place that others have cared for. So I invite you just to take a moment and recognize where you are in place and time, and to feel that respect for the land, for the waters, for the skies, and for all those who care for you and care for the place where you find yourself. I want you to feel comfortable sharing. This is an interactive session. All ideas are welcome, and whatever surfaces, whatever arrives, is something that we welcome, It's a hospitable place and a place of responding in order to make meaning together. So it's not about right or wrong. It's about experimenting and seeing what happens. Are we ready to get into it, Andrew?
Absolutely, absolutely fine to go. I've just about got your fun sheet ready to post. And yes, let me know if you want me to post that invitation to join the session.
Sure, go for it. I'm going to trust you to do all the behind the scenes.
Yep.
And I know this is a bit of an interactive burst, a PD burst, which means it's not a long time we have together. So I want to be mindful of the protected time that folks are giving us to spend together, which I know is about 30 minutes. So if it's okay, I think I'll go ahead and launch our particular inquiry today. And I'm hoping that you see a slide that says today's inquiry. It's got a beautiful photo of a bridge.
Yep.
Are you seeing
Working
that?
well. Working
okay.
well.
Okay, fantastic. So today for me to pose to you an invitation to think about place, hopefully in new ways. And I'm asking us to think about the places that we find ourselves. And those can be those physical places where we are, like right now I'm sitting at my computer. Those can also be metaphorical places. Those can be places that we go to in our minds. So however you want to think about place is great. Bring that concept up to your mind right now. And I'd like us to kind of think about place as a provocation in and of itself. And how do we do this? Well, we need to do it through our mindset. We need to do it with how we perceive, how we interpret whatever is around us. And this is something that's really important in Pop-Up Studio is how can we use what's already available to us to teach as these learning resources, because we're teaching at a time that the children in our care, the learners in our care, are the most materially endowed generation in history. Doesn't mean everyone has lots of stuff and everyone has privilege. It means there's the most stuff that we've ever had on our planet right now. So how can we be using those materials sustainably and in really good ways? So that means we need to allow those materials to be our thinking partners. So a key takeaway, and again, you're going to take away what is meaningful and relevant to you, but my intention is that you might perceive or interpret place in new ways, anew. And I'm going to go into the why and the how. I'm inviting you into that takeaway after we come to a mutual understanding on the definition of place, because place can be defined in lots of different ways. One of the things I promised is I would share a definition that I'm finding to be very meaningful and helps me drop into the concept of place in deeper ways personally. And I hope it does the same for you. So place, according to David A. Greenwood, who is actually a Canadian scholar, is this bridging space, if you will. It's where social and ecological contexts converge. I love this phrasing of a meeting ground. And to really pay attention, here's another concept of that interconnectedness between the social and the ecological, between your experience of place and mine. I just love this notion of this meeting place, of this stopping point. And I love that we address the social as well as the ecological. I don't think about place that way, or I didn't used to anyway. I would think about place as this physical place, the ecology of the place, and with climate change, etc., being more conscious of what's happening in these physical places. But to remember myself to these places in social ways is really important. Well, why? Well, because if we go back into some of the place research and literature, place-based learning, we might be thinking about place in the way I just said. But ecological educators, people who are leading this work in the field, are reminding us we need to actually re-inhabit our environments as we explore this concept of living well. What does it mean to live well? Beautiful inquiry, right? And I love this connection with social justice educators who have been working for decolonization, to be inhabiting these spaces in ways that our Indigenous elders have been doing since time out of mind. So how can we bridge this thinking together? How can we combine the social and the ecological thinking? And that we have to do this for the sake of our human survival, and taking care of and being good stewards, which I know is in many of our curriculum and in our hearts and in our minds as we undertake those kinds of inquiries with our learners. So how might we actually do this? What's the sort of nitty gritty? And I'm always looking at how can we really go deeper in our thinking to make meaning together? How can we do that artfully? We are artists as educators. We are weavers. We are bringing in all of these different stimulus, these different resources, these different needs and desires and interests, and we're bridging all the time. So Pop-Up Studio offers a few different very tangible frameworks to use to do this kind of work. And this is not a method per se, in the sense that you need to follow the rules and you need to do things in a certain order, but rather paying attention to very important elements, concepts, materials, and experience. And so today we're going to work with the concepts of place and those related concepts we talked about, social, ecological, this notion of cultivation. We're going to think about what are the places or the contexts that are really compelling for us and for our learners. That's bringing that personalization piece into play. And then what makes Pop-Up Studio even more is that we are popping up the thinking, we're popping up the concepts with hands-on experimentation with materials. It's got to be a hands-on experience. Why? Because our hands are highways for learning. They help us fast track connections. They help us fast track meaning making. They can position us in a much more embodied type of learning where we don't just trust our minds, but we're trusting our hearts, we're trusting our spirits at the same time as a knowledge makers. Okay. Andrew, how are we doing so far?
Fabulous. And we've got Denise and Harvey waiting to join us as soon as you're ready. So
awesome. Okay, fantastic. Well, we're just about there. I'm going to show and tell a little example, and then we'll be ready for some dialogue and spontaneity as we work with our souvenirs. So the guiding question that I'm inviting you into is focusing on this notion of story. The verb live kind of speaks to this inhabiting, right, of a space, that these concepts are abstract, they're malleable. We're reinventing them. We're reconsidering them all the time, hopefully. Otherwise, learning becomes stagnant. So this is why I'm choosing my words really carefully. What stories live, and in this case, our context is our souvenir. So I've invited you to bring something to this session that is meaningful to you, connects you to a place. It doesn't matter what the souvenir is, as long as it's meaningful to you. So I'm going to tell you a little story that's in my book about African trade beads. So this is my material. And these African trade beads were on loan for me for a photo shoot for this second edition. I really wanted to convey a concept of heirloom. We're exploring our inherited beliefs and values as educators. What are the things that we've kind of have given to us, if you will, through your teacher training, through your experience on the job. Maybe you had family members who were educators like me. I come from a family of teachers. That means we inherit a lot of beliefs and values and practices. So I wanted something tangible and something beautiful to speak to that concept of inheritance, this inherited beliefs and values. These heirloom beads I thought would be really great. So luckily, there's a beautiful bead store in Granville Island in Vancouver. If you ever come to Vancouver, it's a great place to go. And they allowed me to choose any beads I wanted on loan for this photo shoot and return them. And I said, look, I'm looking for something that looks really old. And the person who was at the store guided me to these beautiful African trade beads. Now, I didn't know anything about African trade beads. I hungrily chose color, texture, shape, I just was in this state of bliss of gathering all these beads. And then when I was at the studio where Alyssa Dawson, who's my amazing photographer, was shooting away, I realized, I looked down at these beads and went, oh my gosh, these African trade, what were these trade beads used? What kind of trade were these used for? And oh my goodness, I'm talking about inherited beliefs and values and practices. I'm a non-African. This isn't appropriate. I just got flooded, everyone, with, oh my goodness, this is totally inappropriate that I'm holding these, that I'm using these. I went home, I did Googling about African trade beads, and what I read was very disruptive. I almost quit. But I thought, where can I actually learn more? I don't want to make assumptions about these materials and where they come from. I want to actually get some accurate information. So the rest of the story is in the book if you want to pick it up. But all this to say and to show that a simple material can evoke so much emotion, so many questions, can put us into the questions. They become these rich contexts for exploration. A complex inquiry can be launched, can be birthed with something as simple as a bead. So there's a good segue to grab your version of a bead, your souvenir. And I'd love us to begin with a couple of even more narrow, more precise prompts to help us uncover some ideas about place and some connections to place to stimulate that ecological and social thinking and get into this part that is super interactive, I hope. Andrew, are we ready with our friends who are risk takers and willing
absolutely.
to
Now,
do
I
this?
know that you're sharing a screen from just a single screen, so therefore because you're sharing your slides, you've lost the view. But we've got Denise with us, and we've got Dr. Harvey, who I know very well, who's from New Zealand, who really understands culturally that sense of place. And so you've got two fabulous participants. Experiment on them as much as you like right now.
Oh, amazing. I'm feeling, very, very honored. And of course, I just want to repeat once again, I do not consider myself to be an expert. Expertise is something that I strive for, but to me, that's something that I never reach. It's something that I'm always moving into. I'm a real work in progress. So I hope what I'm sharing is seen in light as an offering, and that I'm here to learn and to grow. So within this offering and what others are wanting to offer in return. So the first question that is helpful to me to consider is the stories of place, first of all, like to just remember, however we want to make sense of place. I invited you at the start to kind of think about, when I hear that word place, like what comes to mind for me? What's living in my body for me? And as you hold your souvenir, you might think about, if you want more starting points, the sights, the sounds, the smells, the tastes, the ecologies that come up for you around this notion of place that your souvenir is holding. I'm going to go ahead and stop my share so that I can see your amazing faces. Yes, yay, there we go. And yeah, would just love to hear and see, if you don't mind, holding up your souvenir and telling us about the stories of place that live inside.
Denise, how about we start with you?
Yeah, Denise, go first.
Denise, you're on mute at the moment, so just you're telling us a fabulous story there. We need to hear it.
Thank you for that. Brilliant. Thank you for that. My souvenir is an ukulele that I got after I lived in Hawaii for several years after college. And one of the reasons that I selected it as something to take home on my travel is because living out there and the friendships that I made from people who were born in Hawaii, grew up in Hawaii, were visitors, however many generations back. It was important to take something that I thought might represent that time of being a visitor. And I know that this instrument is a product of lots of cultures who settled in Hawaii at different times. And the music made through it has gone through different phases and transitions as well. So it's just a nice symbol to remind me of my time being a visitor, and not wanting to take something, definitely wanting to be additive and not subtractive to that place that meant so much to me, being there.
Denise, may I respond to your offering there? Thank you, first of all, for sharing such a rich description of and connection that you've made to why you've chosen this souvenir today, and why you chose it to bring home. As I was listening to you, and when I'm listening to whoever I'm working with, I'm listening for my own authentic interest points, these little sites of inquiry for me. And my points of interest for you, there's so many, but one is how you talked about additive and not subtractive, and this notion of visitor. And it made me think about a responsible visitor. What does that mean? And as we're selecting souvenirs, and I was recently in Hawaii myself, and it was so interesting with my 2 children. They really wanted these souvenirs that we were finding that, I'm like, I'm pretty sure these aren't even made here in Hawaii. And when I investigated them, they're made in China. So it's interesting, like, is that, yes, for them, that's a connection to that place. Whereas I chose, and I know I'm on a bit of a blur screen, so you can't see, but I chose a journal that's made in Hawaii, by local people, because I'm thinking about these things. So again, that can stimulate a really rich inquiry with learners around, well, what does this mean? And who knows where that's going to go. So yeah, thank you so much for thinking about the place and that ecological and social interaction with the selecting of your souvenir. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, thank you. Dr. Harvey, love to hear your stories of place and the souvenir you selected to share.
Indeed, place-based learning is a big part of the curriculum in New Zealand. We're making that transition. But I'm just going to share, this is also based around whanaungatanga, or whakawhanaungatanga, the idea of building relationships. So this here is a wine coaster, which has actually been built by my students last year. So a souvenir from the past, I guess. It's actually made of individual corks, red wine and white wine corks, because Marlborough, where I'm now teaching after 5 years of living overseas, it's a very big wine industry. So for me, it's also a provocation of being a chemistry teacher, the different colours as well, the importance of the wine industry in terms of New Zealand and in my region. But also the relationships I have with my students are also based in that as well. This is a gift that they gave me for my teaching last year. So yeah, that's why I've chosen that particular, and also I like wine. But yeah, that's the reason I've chosen that as my souvenir.
Oh my gosh. Just again, as I'm listening, first of all, thank you so much for being willing to share and in this format. And it's making me think about you talked about gift and industry as 2 of many things. But I think for me, I was just thinking about those 2 concepts together. The gifts that these industries give, and the reciprocity that can exist within those loops, like even education, right? You're here, you're the teacher, they're the students, they've given you this gift, the gift that you've given them when you're in the process of making. I can see in your face, Dr. Harvey, your wheels are spinning, my wheels are spinning, Denise's wheels are spinning, I think Andrew's are spinning as well. So what I'm kind of thinking about here and trying to illustrate is, for me, an inquiry is about dialogue. It's about existing with one another and playing off of what one another is offering, and to go deeper in that. And there's all these places that we can go. It's so abundant, which is one of my guiding principles. So thank you so much. I want to give another little prompt, if that's okay, to go a little bit deeper. And if you're willing to share, that's great. And if you're not, we totally understand that too, but it fully connects to what you were just saying. In fact, I want to let everyone know who's watching and participating. We did not plant this. Like, this is legit improvisational, right? Right, guys? Like, we didn't contact you before. Yes. Okay. It's confirmed. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again, if I can, just so that you can see the prompt and not just hear it. For me, that's helpful. And please let me know again if you're seeing the slide appear on your screen. Friends on the EduSpark end, are you seeing this?
Yes, sorry, I was on mute. Yes, absolutely. It's working really well. A lovely picture of you somewhere. So
yeah, well, I'm in Hawaii. And in fact, thank you. That just reminds me to share a little bit there. So while I was there, and I lived there in my early years, I've returned back a number of times. Many important milestones in my life have happened there. And this time I really wanted to get to know the place more. And so I went on a guided walk with a naturalist who's lived there his whole life. And it was very interesting to learn about industry, the pineapple industry, other types of industry, hunting, that have created very long lasting impacts in this particular place. So for me, it really connects to what our friends were just talking about. And on that note, the other little prompt I wanted to offer you is the stories of people in your souvenir. So Denise, I swear we did not rehearse this, like the gains, the losses, the labor, the ethics, the authenticity, the trade. I talked about the made in China. This little photo is where I got my journal from. It's an artist collective in Maui. And they have things there that local folks have made, trying to use materials that come from that place or are easily sourced. So would love to re-enter your souvenir stories. And this time thinking specifically about the people involved. So, Denise, I'm thinking for you, you talked about the cultures who have inhabited, Hawaii over time, who have, contributed to this beautiful souvenir, this musical instrument. That might be a place that you want to go. Dr. Harvey, I'm thinking about your students' relationship, or maybe the people in the wine industry, or the connection between the two. So either of you would love to hear, whoever wants to share a little bit about the connections you're making around the people in your souvenir.
Sure, I can start. Just it connects me to both the flea market at the Aloha Stadium, where I purchased it, but also to friendships that I made there. I had a friend who played the ukulele, and so when we would get together, it made me want to get it. I have to admit, I haven't learned to play it well. I try my best at it, but it just brings back memories of all those times that we spent together. And also just enjoying the music of Hawaii, the hapa haole music, and I believe our music teacher taught me that the Portuguese, I think, brought the instrument to the islands first. So, yeah.
Wow. And even as I'm listening to you, Denise, a couple things are coming to my mind of what I might do next with you, if we had more time. But I would love to do like this type of sociogram or something where, you're bringing these artifacts from your music teacher, right? And the Portuguese heritage there, and the flea market, and the friend, and, and just to draw these physical lines between these people who are all connected, right? With I say ukulele, that is not right. Clearly, I got to go home and practice. But maybe that's in the center, or maybe it gets moved around. But this whole system is unfolding as I'm listening to you. All these connections that are just so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Dr. Harvey, do you feel like sharing? You're welcome to pass as well, but would love to hear from you if you want to.
Yeah, so a lot of my students are involved in the wine industry. A lot of their parents are involved in the wine industry. A lot of my teachers that I work with are involved with the wine industry. It's a very big part of where I'm working. And it's actually allowed for our chemistry and biology courses to actually connect with those industries. And actually the students are learning through that medium, the chemistry, through the medium of the wine industry, through one of our internal standards, where they actually have to make some wine. They don't get to drink it because they're too young, but and also cheese. We're making wine and cheese. They can eat the cheese, but they're not allowed to drink the wine, unfortunately. That's my job.
You know what? That is, again, I just am like, we did not rehearse this. That is such a powerful, to me, illustration of what I was just hearing about in Reggio Emilia. I finally got to go after wanting to visit there, since 2006. But the importance of daily life, of those everyday contexts, right? Those are compelling contexts. We talked about the how before, right? Of concepts, compelling contexts, the experiences that live there and the materials. It would be so different if your students are just reading about the wine industry or just talking about it. But in your case, they actually got a chance to make it. So different. Again, I took some chemistry through high school. It was not making wine. I would have been super interested. That would have turned in from, it's a context, but it's not compelling. I went and observed an artist, a land-based artist, creating inks from different pigments, in the earth. And she's talking about the chemistry. And I was like, dang, this would have been amazing like in my chemistry class. So I'm just so excited about what you're doing with your students. And I definitely want to learn more about that. And it just reminds me, and I wanted to add this, that materials are powerful. They are evocative. And we need to respect that because they hold different things for us. And we don't always know. Sometimes it takes some time to go into that, to be invited into that, to consider that, to remember those people and places that are actually, they're living in that particular object that might sit on our coffee table or whatever. We forget about it, especially with so many objects being around us. So I hope today was a chance to ignite your interest in inquiry, reignite the opportunities for experiential learning, reignite the chance to be in place and to be informed by place, to be conscious of place. I know these are all different place / ways of working with young people. And I just wanted to share, if I may, just in close, a huge gratitude for this opportunity. Andrew, for you, for coming and putting this all together, for inviting me here. Dr. Harvey and Denise, again, for being risk takers, for sharing your wonderful connections and your thinking, because it allows us to go a little bit deeper and play with what if scenarios. And I just wanted to share as well that if anyone who's watching is wanting to dig a little bit more, I wanted to share where you can find me. So everything is accessible to you on my website, which is popupstudioed.com. There's free resources that you can access there, such as a little mini guide or mini little toolkit with some of my favorite open-ended questions, my favorite prompts, some of my favorite materials to use. The book chapter, the introduction is available to you there. I always hold space for free calls, video calls, so you're welcome to book that. You can purchase the book if you want to read that story or find out more about the models. There's always upcoming workshops free and paid and by invitation. If you'd like me to come out to your place, I would absolutely love to do that. And I did promise a very simple way to get started in this work, and that's simply going outside. I think the two of you would agree with that. Get your students outside. Just that is going to move the needle in this type of work. So once again, huge thank you. I know we're 30 minutes on the mark. We kind of got started about 4 minutes in. So I hope that this was feeling like the right amount of protected time together. And I hope that you'll stay in touch and we can carry on the conversation. Thank you again so much.
Thank you, Misty. Thank you, Harvey. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, everyone. This is available to participants as you can re-enter the link and you'll come back to the recording, and it's on lives as well. Misty, a fabulous conversation. I love your work. Thank you, everyone. I want to be really mindful of the 30 minutes as well. It's just a beautiful session, nice and punching, brilliant. You've added a lot to my thinking as well. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day ahead and a wonderful weekend ahead. Take care. Stay well. Bye.